Oh, thank you everyone for joining us again today on Webinar Wednesdays. I'm Sarah Goff, the Director of Play for Peace. Play for Peace is an organization that develops compassionate leaders in areas of conflict and connects people and community to build lasting peace. So our focus is compassion, connection, community, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Today our guest speaker is Reena Ginwala, joining us from Pune, India, and our topic is Eastern wisdom to build courage and compassion to nurture humane connections. We're so lucky to have Reena with us. She has been committed to restoring peace, facilitating teachers, and women empowerment in India for over 20 years. Reena is a soul guide, author of Kabir to Roots, and compassionate communication practitioner. She's all about taking life as it comes, between helping people respect based on Indian philosophy and traditional wisdom on one hand, and investing in gardening, cycling, and traveling on the other. So we're so excited to have her with us. Joining us on the call today is also Archana Magar. She's our Asia Regional Coordinator and our Global Trainers Coordinator, as well as Yasmin Hussein, who is our Social Media Coordinator and Executive Assistant. So they're joining us today so we can have a deep discussion with Reena on these topics that is so important to us as we're facing a global pandemic together. And as we, as a community, as we're facing how can we have self-care and care for our community all at once during these challenging times. So I would love to pass the workshop over to Reena, and she's going to take us through a presentation that she prepared. And I'm so excited to have you with us, Reena. How are you doing today?
Oh, I am so happy to be here and very touched that Archana thought of inviting me. And Sarah, you and I have met at the Parliament of World's Religions, and I've met many of the Play for Peace, lead trainers and community members. So I'm very excited to be a small part of the community that I respect a lot. Thank you for having me. Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes. So I'd love to move with the theme of the day and also, bring the Eastern wisdom, which is thriving right now. And I wish that the impact of it would also thrive because we are in such a challenging time right now, and there's a huge opportunity for us to bring forth our humane nature, our being, so that we nurture our own as we reach out and connect with the beingness of the others. I would love to introduce the Sufi weaver poet Kabir, who lived in central India in the 15th century. And his words are kept alive in the rural regions of India and Pakistan, and very much alive even now through oral tradition. And I'm pleased to bring this to you because from Archana and all the other friends, Agyat and Najat and Daya and all the other friends from India, Swati of course, I have learned of the amazing work that Play for Peace has done within communities and in rural and urban spaces. So Kabir was a weaver poet, and I will be sharing a song by Kabir and also about 4 to 5 couplets that are very much inspiring for me as well on a day-to-day basis.
For the watcher that might never have heard of Kabir, could you just talk a little bit more about the religious tradition from which Kabir came from, just so that everyone watching can understand better?
Sure. Yes. So Kabir was born to a Hindu widow, it is believed, and he was abandoned because in 15th century it was very difficult to for the survival of the child and the mother, who was an unwed. And she was a widow, but somewhere there was also a story that she was unwed. She was a widow when Kabir was born, or something like that. So there was a controversy around the birth of Kabir, and he was abandoned by a lake and found by a Muslim couple who were weavers, and they were longing for a child. So when they saw this child Kabir crying, they were amazed that their prayers were answered, and they picked up the child, and they of course looked for a possible parent, but when they didn't find anybody, they took the child home. And so he was born to a Hindu mother, raised by Muslim parents. And in those times there was a lot of opposition to that. So his adopted parents had to face a lot of difficulties. They were outcast by the community, and they still raised Kabir to with compassion and courage. Is something that I want to get into first, and it helps us to connect with our inner guru, our inner voice, which all of us have, irrespective of where we are in the universe. So the song is so that we can connect with ourselves, our inner divine source. When we say human beings, it's now, it's since connecting with Kabir and other spiritual practices, I'm coming across the whole idea of us as a being, and it's so valuable to nurture on a daily basis so that we function, we engage with our purpose from that beingness. So this song I would like you to listen to in a bit, but I want to explain some of the metaphors in the song, because Kabir, I think, was a spiritual scientist. He had this amazing way of using metaphors, using direct perception through the metaphors, through stories, to explain the simple and yet profound ideas of life. So in this song, some of the metaphors that inspire me are about, of course, it's about self-connection, which is also very much the key in compassionate communication that I am practicing. So here, Kabir speaks about, what have we earned in our life? Really questioning us, probing to check that what have you earned, because at such times when we are facing uncertainties, it's the social capital, the emotional well-being, and the skills that we have that are our earnings. So along with that, the attitude that we have, the contribution that we are making to ourselves and others, are all to be seen in an idea of earning. So at one point, Kabir says that, and I'll take a pause in a moment to bring in your reflections as well. But we earn, for example, as much as large as a block of iron, and when what we give back is a small needle, and sometimes we give back out of guilt or some kind of pressure. And then not only do we give a needle out of that whole block of iron, we also kind of, Kabir says, that we stand on the terrace and look out, that who is acknowledging me? who is celebrating me for that I have given? What comes up for you when you hear that?
For me, certainly the power of the ego that sometimes drives us to look for acceptance and encouragement from the outside instead of from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything else that you would like to share? Yasmin, Archana?
Yeah, for me, I think a lot of the sort of like extrinsic giving of why people sometimes give back, like you mentioned, because of guilt or shame. But so yeah, so just thinking about that is if no one was watching, sort of like what would we do?
Yeah. And I'm guessing that through Play for Peace, you're really cutting across that extrinsic motivation and that sense of ego by just, the approach is so nourishing and so meaningful. So I want to appreciate that as well. And really, I also want to share that when we bring up these conversations, it's not to further shame anybody, to further put pressure on anyone that's here listening, but it's just to kind of explore what our human nature is all about. And it's not the essential nature. In compassionate communication, also, we believe that essential nature is divine, but we have been conditioned, and that is what we want to unlearn and uncondition ourselves and break away from.
Yeah.
So that's what the opportunity is in these times when we are really slowing down and facing the more of the unknown and with great vulnerability and tenderness.
And I'm just reflecting on, and maybe we can bring in Archana and Yasmin as well. I mean, connecting with our guru within feels in many ways what we are hoping to facilitate with our community. We're asking very normal people all over the world, very just who are living their lives maybe from a humble background, and we're training them and supporting them to be facilitators of change in their community and facilitate building more compassion, facilitate building connections in communities that are divided, helping communities go beyond surviving into thriving, exactly what you're saying. And it just is really resonating with me that in many ways, in a different way to say this could be, we're asking them to connect with their guru within and find the power of that we all hold within us to create, incredible change.
I just have one comment on as you were sharing that Kabir is saying that the being and sharing. I'm not keeping power with myself, but sharing the whole power. So this is what we are also practicing in Play for Peace, where we also talk about role modeling, and when role modeling comes, everybody is leader, and we share that leadership, and how these values are also learned, adapted, and also practiced in Play for Peace. So that's how I could connect with the word guru and our values, role modeling, compassion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that all leaders principle kind of. Yeah. And the last one which I love in this song is about the boat of our life as if it's become heavy like a rock. And it's going to sink. It's bound to sink in the middle of the ocean. As we live life, we carry baggage. If we are not mindful and if we don't have the skills to transform ourselves as we go with each challenge, we carry excess baggage and our boat of life becomes heavy. So that's again about it's not a matter of survival to sink and also to kind of stay afloat, barely stay afloat.
Mhm.
It's about thriving. Life is meant to, nature also is meant to encourage us to thrive. What would that be? So, shall we listen to the song now?
Yes, absolutely. That would be
Sure.
wonderful.
Okay. So, yeah, it's a 6-minute song. There are English subtitles, but just stay with the metaphors and just listen to the song. Music is beyond language.
ए राम भजन भजियो नहीं, राम भजन भजियो नहीं, नहीं कियो हरि सुहेत। अब पछताया क्या हुए, जद चिड़िया चुग गई खेत। अरे चिड़िया चुग गई खेत, लरे अब रेत रही। अरे राम भजन भजियो नहीं, हे तो संता साच कई। हे गोविंदो गायो नहीं, तूने क्या कमायो बाविरा। गोविंदो गायो नहीं, तूने क्या कमायो बाविरा। क्या कमायो बाविरा, गोविंदो गायो नहीं रे। एरण की चोरी करी रे, कियो सुई को दान रे। एरण की चोरी करी रे, कियो सुई को दान रे। चढ़ चौबारे झाकरियो तू, चढ़ चौबारे झाकरियो तू। अभी अनायायो मान रे, गोविंदो गायो नहीं, तूने क्या कमायो बावरे। गोविंदो गायो नहीं। हिंदू होकर पीपल काटे, खर्च किन्या को खाई रे। हिंदू होकर पीपल काटे, खर्च किन्या को खाई रे। मुस्लिम होकर ब्याज कमावे, मुस्लिम होकर ब्याज कमावे। जड़ा मूल से जाई रे, गोविंदो गायो नहीं, तूने क्या कमायो पाव रे। गोविंदो गायो नहीं। गंगा ननायो गोमती रे, चढ़ियो ना गढ़ की नार रे। गंगा ननायो गोमती रे, चढ़ियो ना गढ़ की नार रे। बन जा रे बन जा रे बेल ताई थारो गयो जमारो हार रे गोविंदो गायो नहीं तूने क्या कमायो बावरा गोविंदो गायो नहीं
Well, I just love to continue on a little bit about even before the song, we started talking about giving back and giving back to fill our ego for the acceptance or the accolades, or giving back just because we understand when we give, we get so much more in terms of, you know, the iron or the needle. And I think that's a common thread that runs throughout the community, which is doing this work. Most of our community, I mean, it's a community of volunteers. I mean, our community is not getting paid to do this work, although it's sometimes incorporated in someone's job and things like that. But for the most part, the spirit of it is completely volunteer. And I think that that's often the energy that people have to keep doing this positive work, is this understanding that giving to a community often you end up receiving more in terms of feeling of fulfillment, having a community that's thriving instead of just surviving, meeting new people, having new experiences, learning new skills. And so just thinking of this topic of giving back, because one of the things about COVID right now is we're seeing, even if so many people have, you know, we see all the unemployment and people losing jobs and things like that, which is absolutely the reality, but we're also seeing so much generosity and so many people giving back. You know, health workers putting their lives on the line to, you know, to save others, and, you know, people in groceries and all the essential workers. And I think that there's a new recognition of the power of supporting your community in a way I don't know that I've seen in my lifetime. I'll be honest. I think people have rallied around different tragedies, sort of in a local way, but to have this global experience together and a global recognition of people who work for their community, I don't think I've ever seen this before. And this is maybe something that we felt within the Play for Peace community, and you know, because of the work we did, but in the general outside in the public, I maybe felt like outliers, like people would say, oh, you know, you're do-good, you know, we're sort of do-gooder, sort of strange, sort of outside the norm. But I don't know, do you see a shift? Do you feel this shift that's happening in terms of a global recognition of people who are giving back to, or working for their community, being recognized? And
I do see that, and more people are jumping onto the you know, the side of interdependence.
yes,
Because otherwise, you know, we've all been brought up either as completely dependent in this world of patriarchy and systemic oppression, you know, or it's independence. You know, I can do what I want, nothing can stop me, stuff like that, which also takes us away from who we are with, and gives us a false sense of belonging through social media and all those other virtual means. And right now, even our virtual has become very personal.
yes.
So, and also we are kind of stuck under the same roof with our own family members or community members, and living so closely, especially in the communities where Play for Peace is very active. that it's hard. It's hard, and hence it is time to look at this stanza, this couplet where Kabir says that our boat has become heavy. Can we see that? And if our boat is heavy as made of rock, how do we expect to sail through life? Because conflicts are becoming sharper wherever there's stress and fear these days. So I'm guessing that it's also time to reflect upon why is the boat heavy? What is the baggage? What can I add? What can I remove to bring back a balance of interdependence? So are there any thoughts around that?
Yes, I've been having a lot of conversations about this. Sort of a lot of people in the beginning were treading water because everything was uncertain. Nobody knew what was going to happen, the next day, what was going to happen. And so I think now we're getting to a point of understanding that it's more long-term and that we have to think about being more sustainable with ourselves. And in that, like you're talking about, the metaphor with the boat is like, now is the time, it's slowly sinking, and now is the time that we need to reflect and check in with ourselves and be more self-compassionate too, in order to continue along this journey. So I think that's what I've been thinking about a lot lately as we're in this sort of transition. And I'm thinking, okay, it's not trying to live day to day like we were the last 3-4 weeks, even more than that for some people. But how do we think about this long term?
Yeah. So from ego, we've moved to humility. And there are three more couplets that I want to explore with you. So
Please.
Let's move on. Yeah, this is about compassion. And here the metaphor is about the grinding stones. Look at the picture. And in the center of the picture, there is a grinding stone. You might have seen it in the villages. And, the women, sometimes men, they put grains of wheat in the center, and they turn the grinding stone one on top of the other. And through that, the lower stone, of course, is steady, and the grain of wheat gets made into flour. So Kabir says in one of Doha is a couplet that Chalti chaki dekh kar diya Kabira roye, dui patan ke beech mein sabut bacha na koi. Sometimes when Kabir, as you see in the picture, is in despair, and he says that watching the rotating grinding stones, Kabir cries, no one escapes unscathed between the two grinding stones. And, and I was reflecting on this, that what is Kabir trying to say? There is a sense of despair. Well, what is this metaphor all about? And I realized that, life is lived between the grinding stones of ignorance and suffering. Ignorance is, our ego and what we do, our judgments, and how we have a sense of separation when actually we are one. So that is ignorance to me. And suffering is the whole idea of why me? Why do I have to take this? It's their fault. These people don't understand. And even the do-gooders sometimes get into this, why me? Yes. It's the whole world, the politicians, the corporations, all these people, the business people, there again we separate out of overwhelm and despair because we are scared. Yes? And then the same thing, as we reflect and stay with Kabir's words, we move from grieving. We use compassion to grieve and accept the reality as it is. When we hear about acres of forests being wiped out for mineral ore or something else, and there's so many opportunities to grieve unfortunately, or people being lynched or whatever. And then the same, as we keep going with our values, ignorance turns to wisdom. As we engage with community, as I did with my lady waste picker's daughter's words, I gained wisdom, and suffering leads us to learn about compassion and gratitude. Yeah. So now the grain of wheat, as our life is lived each day, is still poured into the center of the grinding stones, but the movement is between wisdom and gratitude or compassion. And there is another doha of Kabir, which says, where he says, "Chaki chaki sab kahe, kili kahe na koe, jo kili se laga rahe, bako bal na baka hoye." Kili is the central pivot. When the grain of wheat drops close to the pivot, it does not get ground in the stones. It stays whole. So Kabir says that everyone moans about the grinding stones of life. No one mentions the central pivot. He who remains close to the pivot will be unharmed and whole. And to me, it's our compassionate action through the understanding of inherent interdependence that keeps us close to our purpose, our value system, in each thought, deed, and action. And there, we remain whole. Our spirit, our divinity is whole. That's how I use the wisdom of, Kabir to encourage me and to guide me to the next steps each day.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so when I was listening, I was also thinking about our community is mostly in Asia. Our communities are working where there is a lot of conflict, there is a discrimination, and the community which are not ready to adapt the outside leaders and outside youth. So there are many challenges our youth are having in every time they go in community. So when I was listening to you and when you were sharing that this grinding stones are also helping our suffering and senses of fear to come towards compassion and start talking about and being in action and being that compassionate with the community and taking leadership on that. So it was also reflecting back with the actions our youth are doing in the community.
Yeah, I think that's a celebration for us. So that's compassion, and next is community. And here, I would like to say that at times I feel lonely and insecure, and that those thoughts do come, and then I explore my space within. Where is this sense of loneliness coming from? And when I explore that, then I also have a sense of the disconnects through various challenges and baggage with community, whether it's my compassionate communication community or my immediate family, my people in my colony, our society. Now the gates are closed. All of us are reaching out to each other. So again, connecting there with hope and courage. So one of the doha of Kabir is, Kabira khada bazaar mein, sabki mange khair, na kahu se dosti, na kahu se bair. And it's about Kabir standing in the marketplace, with a stick in his hand. Kabir is standing in the marketplace at the crossroads and wishing for the well-being of all, especially in these COVID days, when we know that one person gets it, then all of us are in danger. So wishing for the well-being of all, neither is he friends with anyone, nor does he have enmity for anyone. So it's really about a non-biased equanimity and presence, presence to stay alert and calm to whatever is needed, wherever. So yes, we may have yes, through the virtual community right now, I have a global opportunity. Thank you for that. And on a daily basis, I have a smaller scale, a smaller canvas of what do I do, what shift do I make in my inner bias and judgments and disconnects, you know. So that's what this Doha is all about, to wish for and act for the well-being of all. So
Yes, I really like. Oh,
yeah.
sorry.
No, the question is here, what can I contribute to my community and what do I receive from it? We did touch upon it, but there's so much more that you might want to share.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I just wanted to point out, I loved how you mentioned what you're doing for like the larger, the greater community and what you're doing within. And I think from conversations that I've had with certain people and knowing people's abilities, different abilities of how to give back and contribute to their community, I think is really important to name all these different types of giving back. Because I was, for example, I was speaking with a friend in New York City who was staying alone, and just like this sense of hopelessness that she felt, and that, you know, she's like, I'm not a nurse, I'm not on the front lines, I can't physically do stuff, so what can I do? And for us, it was really great to have a conversation about the fact that you're reaching out to your community, you're listening, you're giving space, you're having a family video chat where you're giving space for the young kids to kind of interact with someone new and do these different things. The fact that you're spreading compassion to other people in different ways. And I think right now there's so many different types of how to contribute, and sometimes people don't see them as a contribution to their community. Even you contributing to yourself is a contribution to the community.
Yeah. And the next one will bring us even more clarity about that. You know, Marshall Rosenberg of Nonviolent Communication, he says that, you know, there's such a flow between giving and receiving. It's as if who is the giver and who is the receiver, you know. And Kabir also says that the river never drinks the water. And that is a little difficult because that's also like pushing us to no expectations and just give. And here we are trying to, you know, roll back some giving to ourselves, you know. So there are these, again, revisiting all these value systems that have been kind of put on us to say, you know what,
Yeah.
there is a little bit of a change to be made in that, you know. So it's all a new information.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So when I
Archana?
was also reflecting with this question, I was also thinking of these days, like in COVID-19, everybody is on social media and television and news, and keep on hearing, deaths during these times in different cities and different countries, and getting all these messages is sometimes overwhelming. And we do have some groups where there is, like, for example, we have a group of mental health therapists. So we have one therapist who is offering everyday poems to our group and sharing poems which are, more of courage, more of compassionate, and sharing So I'm also taking a part of, doing a story on each day and putting the story and sharing with everybody on WhatsApp. So this is like one way of, contributing to my community. And then I'm getting messages from some of the friends like, you have started this putting on your status, and this is really nice to see different stories. And these stories are also based on, it's not only for children, but also for everybody who is, going through that. So something I really wanted to share.
Yeah, stories and the Play for Peace games connect us to the child within us. And that's what I've just laughed so much. And I remember as a child I would laugh, but I couldn't stop. And I relived that experience in the trainings with Agyat and Swati and Sarah and Sam when they came to Pune. So yes, bringing out the child in me. Such a precious gift that I have received from being with Play for Peace community. There's one last one on connection, which again is a Doha. So amazing how these themes pop up when I read the couplets in my mother tongue, Hindi, and I'll read this one. That मैं लगा इस एक से एक भया सब माए सब मेरा मैं सबन का कहाँ दूसरा नाए. I am connected to the one. When I am connected to the one, I find myself merged in all beings. All are mine. I belong to all. There is no other. And the Warli artist, if you see, has painted this beautiful image of the dance that they do. I mean, this is their actual traditional dance that they practice on various occasions. And I told him to put all of the religions and symbols of the religions right in the center and say that this is the smaller circle. The bigger circle is the collective consciousness, collective humanity that we all have in us. And that's what we are going to uphold and work through. That's the saving grace for all our religions and our communities and our small collectives. So I love this. I love this sense of how when I connect with myself, I find myself that I can see myself in all. And then when I'm giving to somebody, it's as if I'm giving to me. That part of me that I resonate with in the other. And slowly, slowly over time, there is no other. And that's the experience of thriving. That's how thriving looks like, feels like. So how will I sustain the sense of oneness in times of crisis? That's the question for us. And as you were asking earlier, Sarah, how do you live these values? I think I live them through the pictures, the images, the songs, so that my multiple intelligence, my senses are used to, to experience some of the beauty of
one of the things that's coming up to me in this time as well is
visuals.
Well, you even started out with the breath, how connecting to yourself, using your breath to connect to yourself. And with COVID being airborne, science is still trying to figure out exactly how much, and we don't need to go into all of that, but I think this awareness of we breathe in, we breathe out, and that's shared across the globe. And I think that we can either go into sort of a state of fear because we're sharing the same air, and then we can get infected, and all these sort of go down that path, or take the other path of we share the same air and we're all in this together. How can we keep everyone healthy? How can we keep everyone safe? How can we move together through this, even if we're physically distanced, even if, and all these other sort of layers to it. I think that the component of the breath and how we're shared through that is really a profound reflection, I think, at this time.
I think for me,
particularly.
when I'm reading this question, I like creating space within the day to reflect on how you're feeling every day. And that sometimes, and I think in times of crisis, we're so used to just moving. And there were some days in the beginning that I didn't take a second to be like, what's happening? Like, what am I feeling? And then I wasn't able to manage it. And so I think just checking in with yourself every day and giving yourself to be honest of like how you're feeling, because it's not linear, or it's not going to just go up every day and eventually we'll be at this high point, but it's more of every day can be totally different. And so I think giving yourself the space to just be and check in with yourself and to recognize how you're feeling. And I've talked a lot about this with one of Play for Peace's partners, Kokori, and we started writing different ways, creative ways, how to check in with yourself and your young ones too, and teaching children how to check in with themselves. So we talked about how to use nature. If you are able to go outside, being able to say, okay, well, why don't you point to something, or why don't you go find something that represents how you're feeling in this moment, or go find something that represents how you're feeling about quarantine, and that could be a rock, and then have your young ones kind of explain that. And so we're doing a series, and we talked about technology. Now, we have emojis. And so I actually have a new check-in with a friend, and every day I send her like a bunch of different emojis of how I'm feeling, and that's it. And we just have this space to just be, and we're not trying to fix it for each other, but it's just a space where we can just, today I have my emojis are the squinty face with my mouth open, or I have my glasses on emoji, or whatever. But I think, finding different ways of how to check in and how to express yourself, because sometimes it's not easy to express with words right away. So I'm really excited that we've been writing these activities of here are different ways how to check in. What about through art, or saying what your weather pattern is for the day. And
that is empathy, isn't it? That is empathy practice, and through that our systems of well-being are activated, and we release the pent-up emotions and feelings, so that there's space for gratitude or some curiosity and connection, of course. And along with feelings in compassionate communication, which is also called nonviolent communication, there is a suggestion that what does the feeling indicate as vis-a-vis need? So when I am, for example, feeling confused about something, because there are mixed messages coming, right, every time. So whether we should have vegetables or not have vegetables, or wash them with soap or not, So if I'm feeling confused, then I need clarity. If I'm feeling frustrated, then I need ease, or maybe I need support, So connecting with the needs also, so maybe at a second level, once we have comfort with our feelings and a vocabulary through that, we can say, okay, what does the feeling indicate as a need behind the feeling, and the needs are the motivators for natural action. So all action is in service of needs. So that's another way of new action or mindful choices, and a sense of resourcefulness, that I am enough. What I have is enough, you know. So there again, we shift from sense of scarcity to sense of abundance. And gratitude also helps us to feel that abundance, you know, and be creative about the challenges that are in our face in these times of crisis. So I would like to bring that needs awareness along with feelings. Yeah. Archana, you want to share something? You're on mute. Yeah.
So I would like to share very quickly that when we were talking about connection, and also like connecting with oneness and with myself, I was also, so I'm doing this practice, like it doesn't happen like from last 10 years, I guess this didn't happen, but now I'm talking to my parents every day. And then we are also having conversation and dialogue about how they used to be, do things when in past times. So my mother is also sharing, like every time she shares a poem from her childhood, and when I listen it, I really feel that connection, and I write it down. So it's something that even when we are together, this didn't happen. But in this time, we do have time, and this has become a ritual. So when Yasmin was talking, I was just connecting with, how I'm taking the steps and, using this time of building my relationships and with my parents.
Yeah, we have talked about gratitude and what are we grateful for, and that can be a practice each day. And so that's a huge opportunity, because gratitude and suffering cannot stay in the same space. Just like darkness and light cannot coexist, you know. The minute there is darkness and the minute you light a lamp or you bring some light, the darkness vanishes to whatever extent the light is there. So the same way, to whatever extent we bring gratitude, a sense of gratitude in our thoughts and in our action, that much we are removing the suffering. So that's another thing that I wanted to end with. And yeah, I was just wanting to make a statement to honor Play for Peace in times of COVID-19. And what came up for me was that Play for Peace community stands by the community. So it's for the community, by the community. And even in physical distancing, creating possibilities for social engagement. People talk about social distancing, and now I've heard from a few spaces that no, physical distancing and social engagement. So thank you very much. Thank you for doing what you do and giving me a chance to be a part of it.
Thank you so much, Reena. I think my whole day has shifted from this conversation, and I'm just so grateful that you are here to share with us some nuggets of your wisdom, words of Kabir, the beautiful music that you've shared with us. Really, a shift in perspective is really so helpful, and also the opportunity to do this with people on my team as well. I think from your sharing, bringing in Archana and Yasmin to this format was just a really wonderful experience that I appreciate that we had together today.